Happy Monday. It's not Black Monday yet, but it is a Monday here nonetheless in early November. Welcome into the PHNX Cardinals podcast presented to you by the DraftKings Sportsbook app, America's top-rated sportsbook. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave us a 5-star wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Johnny Venerable, joined as always, Brack, Damien Anderson. Gentlemen, we are roughly 24 hours removed from yet another Arizona Cardinal loss. 10 wins in their last 29 tries at State Farm Stadium. Not great. They were swept by the Seattle Seahawks. Kliff Kingsbury's job remains, let's say, on shaky grounds at best. At worst, Brock, he is the odds-on favorite via numerous books in Las Vegas to be fired next.
That's because anybody with two eyes, maybe one eye, can see that this team had its last gasp yesterday, right? The holes, the issues of this Arizona Cardinals team continue to be exploited, exposed. 5 sacks, 12 penalties, a nauseating amount of pre-snap penalties. Billy Price can't hang at the center position. Cody Ford had a rough day. You guys broke it down so well on the post-game show yesterday. Highly recommend it. If you haven't seen it yet, check out DA and my guy Johnny Venerable, Frank Sanders. It was therapeutic. It's what the people needed yesterday. Big thank you to you gentlemen. But man, as far as this team goes, I mean, I didn't expect somebody to be sent packing today, but I think as far as the writing, it's on the wall as far as the future of this organization, and that we're probably in the final days, weeks, and month of the Kliff Kingsbury era.
Bo, I think just given, and I thought about this quite a bit, given Kyler's unique skill set, I think, and some would call it niche, right? Because his skill set is a bit unconventional, given the sample size of the NFL, right, over the years, given being 5'10", his elusiveness, his quickness, his speed, and throwing ability. So given his niche skill set, I believe that Michael and company will be hesitant before they make that move. And as we talked a little bit about on the show, I think that that's going to happen latter. I mean, with the exception of Coach Wilkes, Michael's been pretty, I would say, loyal to his coaches with Wisenhunt as well as Arians.
Well, there's a couple updates that we have, just in case some of our folks who are in the chat right now. Welcome, friends. Welcome, Isaiah. AZ Kings 480 says, go Suns. Yes, go Suns. Go Coyotes. Go ASU. Go Wildcats. We love our Valley sports, and we love the Cardinals here. But, shit's getting real here in Arizona with the Arizona Cardinals. And so if you're not on the Twitter streets, let me catch you up. This was a report from John Gambadaro, does a great job in 98.7 Sports, stating the following: I would be very, very surprised if anything happens with Kliff. For everyone refreshing Twitter every 60 seconds this morning, he is safe for now, not going anywhere. But then I mentioned it earlier, there are some Vegas odds that continue to make themselves relevant. This came earlier today as well. Adam Thompson does a nice job looking at books across the landscape of Vegas. He has Kliff Kingsbury as the overwhelming favorite following the firing of Frank Wright earlier today, plus 225, Lovie Smith and Josh McDaniels, respectively, behind him. Kliff Kingsbury, I think last week, gentlemen, I saw him right around plus 150, so I'm not sure how it went up. But again, different books are going to give you different values, so take that with a grain of salt. But the general consensus is Kliff Kingsbury, you ask casual fans, you ask the media, you ask Vegas, will he get fired? Is he next to get fired? The answer is a resounding yes, Bo. Like, we're not up here demanding that he be removed today, demanding that he should clean out his office. We're just talking about, it's like you stated before the show. These are facts right now. Vegas is telling you Kliff is going to be fired next.
Right. It's not speculation. It's what, as far as the betting odds go and what Vegas is saying and the wise guys are saying. And I think obviously it's to generate people betting on that, right? And to generate money. And as far as anybody who's kind of watching this team from the periphery, they're seeing that this team is not well coached and that they're underachieving. And what you see as far as Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, all the talent on this team, and them underachieve week in and week out. And each and every time somebody gets a glimpse nationally on a primetime game, they're like, well, that's pretty easy to say, hey, I think Kliff Kingsbury is going to get fired. But then you obviously have to peel back the onion, and really kind of realize, and I see in the chat, as far as how Michael Bidwill operates his organization, is he willing to kind of pull the cord on this team mid-season, which he hasn't done since he's taken the reins as far as president, chairman, owner. No, but I think there are 3 reasons why you have to think that the first time in Michael Bidwell's history that he might really, truly consider it and pull the plug on this thing before, the final clock runs out on this season, just because, I mean, obviously Vegas is going to do their thing, but when you look at this, as far as the Arizona Cardinals, in the next 2 games, they play Sean McVay, who's their daddy. They've beat him once with Kliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray as taking over kind of the reins of this organization. They beat him once. And I think they're at like 1-12 overall against a guy like Sean McVay. And then you've got the opportunity as far as to fall to 0-5 in the division, 3-8 overall. And then you've got pretty much after that game, a game on the national stage, international stage in Mexico City against a very stout 49ers defense that could just pulverize this offense that struggled so much. It could be one of those, like London from a couple of years ago's international incidents where it's going to be the talk of national media the next day. Monday Night Football, and also Hard Knocks, I think, plays a role into it too. Michael Bidwell is not going to want to look like a fool on Hard Knocks for the remainder of the season, just kind of keeping the ball rolling on this franchise that's going in the complete opposite direction. I think that those were 3 legitimate reasons why he could pull the plug before the end of this thing. And also, one thing I'll throw in there too is that it's not the unknown. Like, without Kliff Kingsbury is not the unknown. I mean, we saw this team operate without Kliff Kingsbury in Cleveland last year, and it operated at a pretty damn high level with Spencer Whipple calling the shots. You could go Whipple, you could go Sean Kugler, and you could go Vance Joseph, who people want to play easy connect the dots on.
Yeah, I mean, Bo, I like that, and I didn't even think about the fact that he wasn't with the team last year in Cleveland. But I guarantee you they're weighing all the odds, right? The impact of this change and what it would do to this team. And if it makes sense, in terms of long-term and what are the viable options moving forward, right? Given the skill set, giving the players that you have and playmakers that you have on this team, who is best suited to do this job? Is it for the remainder of the season, next, 8-9 games? Is it going to be Kliff Kingsbury, or is it going to be someone new that we could come in here and be a patchwork for the remaining season? But I don't see Michael moving off of Kliff right now. I think that he's going to give him a shot definitely between these next couple of games. And as you guys mentioned, the visibility, the impact of being immersed in the organization with Hard Knocks and the type of impact that they may have. So, you couple that with, if it doesn't look good on Hard Knocks, depending on, and I guarantee you, owners of the league, they're smart, right? They're going to look at the legal impact, and they're going to, I think that sure, HBO is going to have some freedom, right, to show what they want. But I guarantee you, Michael has final say in terms of what's going to be released regarding this team. But I think, as you guys know, you have to win the crowd. And unfortunately, the Arizona Cardinals, with their play, they're not winning the crowd right now. And optics don't look good.
Nightingale Sunset with a really good comment here. I want to read a couple comments above. When Frank Wright, who was just fired by the Colts, gets fired before Kliff Kingsbury, something is shitty. Frank had a winning record, 40-30-1, has a playoff win, albeit he's in the AFC South. Take of what you will. Technically a better record this year by Cards by game of the half, and he was kind of forced with these horrific quarterbacks year after year. I having a better record than Kliff Kingsbury, who's had Kyler Murray his entire NFL career, albeit in the NFC West. I think that's interesting, and it shows maybe some different standards. Now, what's going on in Indianapolis is a hot mess in and of itself, with Jeff Saturday taking over with no coaching experience. But I also think, a lot of people, myself included, my biggest thing, gentlemen, we talked a little bit, Bo, about this on the post game yesterday, was it's not, to me, for Michael, it's not about moving off a cliff. It has to 100% be what that means then for Steve Keim, because Michael, knowing the optics, I guess he could conceivably do this, but how do you fire Kliff Kingsbury without then firing Steve Keim in January? That is malpractice to your franchise. And so that, to me, is like the bigger weight that he is coming to grips with right now. If I fire Kliff Kingsbury,
Steve has grown up in this organization, so I don't necessarily see that, happening. To your point, Johnny, I think that will be.
There would be outrage if Steve Keim, who he's had success, like we'll talk, if and when Steve gets fired, I will give him a day on the show. We'll talk about all of his hits. We'll talk about how historically he's the best GM they've ever had. There will be time for that. He probably should have been fired with Steve Wilks. If he gets another head coach if he gets to go through the hiring process again, you will not win back these fans that are right now saying we got people in the chat. I don't want to see people not go to the game, but we got people in the chat and on Twitter saying I'm not giving any money to this franchise. I want you guys, use game time, go to the game, support the team. The players still care. But if you keep Steve Keim around and you fire Kliff Kingsbury, that to me is everything, because I do believe, Bo, and I think it was your old cohort, Jody Ayer, who he had an article out today. It was a good article, basically saying like it's the timing of your division is like, this is like a perfect storm if you want to see Kliff Kingsbury go, because they're like, in my opinion, beating Sean McVay Sunday, I want it to happen. It's not realistic given the track record. And then there's blood in the water for Kyle Shanahan on Monday Night Football, national stage. Remember, it was a national stage that got Mike McCoy fired on Thursday Night Football. Like a mixing pot of just a shitstorm. You're not going and playing Carolina again this weekend at hiding at the 10 o'clock window hour or 11 or whatever. You're on. These are big games. These are Fox games. This is nationally televised. These are teams that are in your division that need a get-right game. And right now, with your interior offensive line, Aaron Donald, coming to town for Kyler Murray, like that's an unfortunate scenario for Kliff Kingsbury. It is not a smooth landing. You have no parachute right now,
Johnny. And I want to throw this back at you and Bo. Do you think that that's something that Michael is considering, right? Like, hey, they haven't been able to be at their fullest potential because we've had
everybody's got injuries. You're 0-5 in the division. You lose these 2 games. That is a huge embarrassment. You're measured up against your peers. I don't give a okay, they're missing a couple linemen. That's right.
Yeah, two tackles. So no, I get it. Yeah. I get it. I just you just want to consider all context before you make this decision.
Absolutely.
For sure. And I hope that they're doing that.
I mean, over their last 17 games, they're 6-11. I mean, that's not just a sample size. I mean, dating back to last season, this is an organization that has struggled mightily, hasn't played that game of chess, and has just been stagnant, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And that's Kliff Kingsbury's department. But, I mean, somebody asked me, like, you would fire him after a Monday night game on a short week. And I think I'm not saying spent. Yeah, I mean, you've got to buy. You've got spent. There's I'm not saying spent. Guys. There's not. Yeah. But I mean, if you're floundering like that, and it seems like bad habits, I mean, they're already there, right? Especially for your $46.1 million quarterback that you need to fix and help that they don't sink in too much to where he becomes a Carson Wentz who's gotten not 1 but 2 head coaches fired in his wake of organizations, Doug Peterson and Frank Reich. I think that there's got to be a sense of urgency. And for the first time, I think that Michael Bidwell, the Wisenhunt era, you just had the luxury of a team going nowhere, but the roster really wasn't in good shape at that time. You had like Larry Fitz, you had, Patrick Peterson, but not much beyond that. And then the Steve Wilkes, 1 year was just a disaster organizationally. So I think right now you have talent on your roster and you don't want it to go to waste another season and really this crap that's been going on this season and a half to resonate and linger into the next season. So, but real quick, the Keim issue, it's like he's Michael Bidwell's high school sweetheart. I mean, this is going to be tough for him to cut the cord. There's never been a time in his career, in his running an organization, that he's been alone. He's staring down being alone in this thing with kind of Kyler Murray, but at the same time, you have to kind of keep a relationship that's professional and that's good for him going forward. And I don't know if like buddying up to your franchise quarterback is the best idea, but he's staring down, this isolation that very few NFL owners have to go through.
Well, and you got to rip the Band-Aid off at some point.
You do,
if you want to,
sure.
If you want things to be status quo and stay the same or get worse, because I would argue you're going to be paying Kyler Murray a premium. His money's not kicking in really big time until 2 more years, and you're going to waste that opportunity. We need to be in a position in 2 years where Kyler Murray is unequivocally the best player on this team, and he, in large parts, is elevating and carrying your franchise along with your head coach and your GM, who can make shrewd draft picks because you can't go out and sign a bunch of players in free agency. They're nowhere close to doing that right now. They're trying to supplement left and right. And who is Kliff Kingsbury elevated, especially offensively? Another point I want to get to here, I think it was Diego. Is there any top-tier coaches we could get this offseason? Not so much the question, because we're going to have plenty of time to talk about that. But just Michael Bidwell, each of the last 3 hirings, the Cardinals have been so slow. They have not been aggressive, or they've been turned down, right? I think you have a couple things working for you. You have the quarterback. I think there's more talent on the roster than ever before. I think the division is going sideways fast, but you cannot. This is where I've kind of, I was of the mindset you give Kliff the whole year. You give him an opportunity to say goodbye. And I think he's earned that. I've moved off of that, because if it allows you now, if you move off of him and you give the reins to Vance Joseph, give Vance Joseph a couple games, see what he can do. Of course, give him an interview. If he blows you away, we'll see what happens. But you need to get a head start on your coaching search ASAP. I don't want to start from square one like we've done in so many years prior in January. I don't want to be in a position where, like, they lucked into Bruce Arians. We've talked about it ad nauseum. Bruce was passed over by a bunch of teams, including the Bears. Cardinals were getting rejected for interviews, and Arians came to them, and it was lightning in a bottle. Steve Wilks, same scenario. They were getting rejected left and right. Wilks and them. No one was hiring Steve Wilks for their head coach. And then this thing with, everything with Kliff Kingsbury, the Jets were involved, but it was two, rough franchises competing against each other. Like if the Chargers job's open, we'll see what happens with Carolina. But now the Colts job, historically, that's a good job. Like, you got to have your shit together.
No one.
Okay, but I'm just saying, like, you got to be ready to compete, Michael, for a Sean Payton, maybe a Jim Harbaugh. Like that. That's where you need to be thinking. And so you can't start from square one, Bo. January, Black Monday, whenever that is, January 6th. It needs to be like late November, early December. Like, if I'm cutting ties with everybody, I need to make a list and I need to start setting things up, because there's nothing that says you can't do that.
Well, I think your list, you first start a list of general managers. I think you have to start there and then see what their list looks like.
They're not going to hire. He's not going to hire an external GM. We all know that.
So, okay, you talk to, you've got Adrian Wilson. You've got Adrian Wilson in the building. Why don't you then just tap into him right now?
Well.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Exactly. No, I'm saying that. I'm totally fine. They want to promote Adrian Wilson or Quentin Harris before the end of the season. Sure. Do that. But Rod Graves and Steve Keim and whomever was before them were all internal. Like, Michael's not hiring an external candidate.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's fine. I mean, if that's your guy and that's who you've identified, and that's great. Everybody loves A-Dub. He's as far as one of the most beloved players in franchise history, he's absolutely up there. If then you kind of start to tap into, like, who do you like? Who do you want to go after? But it's the thing. It's going to be inevitable. If you get rid of Kliff, you're right. You can't let Keim make a fourth coaching hire in less than 10 years. So it's really going to be fascinating to see. But you start that process now. You don't say, okay, Black Monday came Monday after the regular season ended. Let's make our list now and see what it looks like and see if these guys are interested. That's what they've done in the past. I know.
There by himself.
It's absolutely just it's head scratching. And unbelievable. And the fact that they've done it as many times as they have, I don't understand it, because they'll stand up there at the podium and say, hey, we've got this we're opening up our search. No rock's going to go unturned, and we're going to do our due diligence. And it's just like, and then you just get a bunch of crap sandwiches, and then you luck out in the Bruce Arians. And, they ended up, one of the most inexplicable coaching rises to a head coaching position was Kliff Kingsbury. And here we are now. I mean, a lot of people predicted this from very jump. He had some success. You can't deny that, but it ended up just as many people envisioned. The Cardinals, you really hope that they are going to, Michael Bidwell is going to get this one right, give this organization a chance to not squander the talent that they have on the roster.
Guys, and everyone knew that this was a risk when they got Kliff Kingsbury, right? I mean, given his lack of success in the college game, but you knew that there was a trend surrounding, West Coast teams with Shanahan and with McVay, and the Cardinals were trying to get on that trend of finding a new trendy coach that had success, quarterback whispers, and they're maybe trying to get the closest thing to Patrick Mahomes. But throughout the evolution of Kliff Kingsbury as a coach, we haven't seen growth on the parts that we need to see, right? In terms of evolution of play calling, you haven't seen the evolution of Kyler Murray. You haven't see the elimination of those self-inflicted wounds. And on the defense, I mean, it's been patchwork. Vance Joseph, for the most part, they've done a great job being the foundation of this team. I think moving forward, and I know that we'll talk about that at length, but they have to look for those type of recession-proof coaches, right? That no matter what the trend, the year, you have a guy that can maybe consistently coach, not minimize issues, errors, right? Because we've seen what Minnesota has been able to do. We saw it firsthand. right? I mean, they've always had talent, but they've had the inability to be consistent and continue to win. They've cleaned up their, self-inflicted wounds as you were, but they have that old feel of, hey, we're going to do everything right. We're going to work harder than you, and we're just going to beat you up front. And I think that if they could identify one candidate like that, I think that would serve this Cardinals well, because I don't want to say it's missing discipline, guys, but they're missing discipline, and that's what it is. That's what happened. That's what happens with those self-inflicted wounds, for sure.
Garvey Craigs, thank you for the $1.99 super chat, my man. Favorite young player on the team? I mean, for me, it's Kyler Murray. On the flip side, defensively, I mean, I do not love what Isaiah. Yeah, Isaiah Simmons. A lot of good candidates, more I think than in years prior, Bo, when they've started these kind of resets.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, there's guys under 25 years old on this roster. It's littered with them in the secondary, and Byron Murphy and Zach Allen, what he's doing up front. Got to be excited about it. But Isaiah Simmons, his game-changing ability on the defensive side of the football should have everybody excited. Him playing close to 80% of the snaps, looking great. And then offensively, Kyler and hopefully when Hollywood Brown, he'll get back to 100% and back in the lineup. I mean, there's a lot of young players and pieces that you should be excited about. And a guy like DeAndre Hopkins, who's defying father time, and despite his down game yesterday, I mean, just have an absolute just huge return to the NFL after his 6-game suspension. But yeah, I mean, that you should. I want to throw Brian Flores in there. I think Brian Flores would be a great hard-nosed coach that if you coupled him with an offensive coordinator, I think that you could limit some mistakes. You would see a more disciplined team. And I think that, him coupled with A-Dub, it'd be great. But you find that offensive mind that you can get in there that you can pair with Kyler, that would be like a Brian Dable with Josh Allen. And what you're seeing Josh Allen, I saw in the chat, Ken Dorsey's kind of just picking up where Brian Dable left off. Like you find what you had in Philly when Carson Wentz had all that success with Doug Peterson and Frank Reich, and before his injury and things started to go south in his career. So yeah, I think there's options. It's got to be exciting because so many times we do see this, right? I think we saw it in Peyton Manning's career at one point. Like not everybody's Tom Brady, where they get with one coach and it's coach quarterback for 10 plus years. It's like some guys like Keim and Kliff were good enough to get them back to the postseason, right? And show that they could play, right? But then there's guys that can get you to the next level, and then they exist out there. And the Arizona Cardinals just need to do their job as Michael Bidwell in identifying those guys that, like, thank you for your service. Here's your gold watch, Steve Keim. Thank you for everything you've done. But there's a ceiling there. We need to find the guys to take it to the next level because we have next level talent on this roster right now.
Well, real quick, you mentioned DeAndre Hopkins talking about taking it to the next level. 3rd game back, he was without the exception of that touchdown, he was virtually unheard of in that second half. I think maybe 2 targets after that touchdown pass. I mean, what you were there in person. Can you please explain what happened? I mean, it wasn't just too high, right? I know I heard some of the communication from Kliff, but we didn't see it like games past where they've moved him around, finding ways to get him the ball. I mean, he's been that impactful with this offense, and they looked like Cardinals of old when D-Hop wasn't playing.
Yeah, it was. You would see Tyreek Woolen out there, kind of even. It felt like on an island, but yeah, there was some too high situations where he had help behind him. But there was times where Kyler wasn't even looking his way. And I'm not saying that has anything to do with the little verbal squirmers that they had that was caught by the cameras. But I think that Kyler felt like Woolen was playing good enough defense, and the too high was there, and he didn't have any fucking time at all. I mean, there were times where 3 of the 5 sacks that Kyler had to take on were 3 seconds, just over 3 seconds. So he was just it was just a jailbreak to Kyler Murray. So he didn't really have time to even, he just had to get the ball out, and he wasn't even looking. He was like first read and go. So unfortunately, I just don't think that DeAndre, I think he was just kind of lost in the shuffle as it was just chaos. After Pete Carroll and that defense made their adjustments after that first drive or that touchdown drive.
Well, for all of you that are ready to make your bets on Kliff Kingsbury being the next coach fired, I would just temper your expectations, because if Josh McDaniels loses to Jeff Saturday and the Colts this weekend, I think he might be first in line to get fired. The street coach that's never coached before, I think McDaniels would leapfrog Kliff. Kliff's got a dub over McDaniels this year. I don't think you can bet on future coaching firings yet on DraftKings, but here's what you can bet on. You can bet on the Phoenix Suns And you customers can make any $5 NBA money line bet, get $200 back if your team wins. You can also use the step up same game parlays, boost your winnings up to 100%. Do it tonight. Saints, Baltimore Ravens on Monday Night Football. It's simple. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use that promo code PHNX. That's promo code PHNX on the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Remember, minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See our show notes for details.
Let's talk about more good stuff, Johnny. How about we're less than 2 weeks away from the World Cup kicking off. We're teaming up with Four Peaks to host all the U.S. and Mexico World Cup matches at their 8th Street Pub, the OG location in Tempe. Enjoy beer specials, giveaways, guest appearances, and more. Check the link in the show notes here. Register for free. Look, I remember when the World Cup was going on a couple of years ago, the last time that the U.S. was involved, it seems like a decade ago, but around the Valley, it was nearly impossible. You had to wait in lines to get into a watch party. You don't have to do that. You can go to Four Peaks, have great beer, great food, great atmosphere, and watch these games. They got the 20-foot screen. Lock in your seat right now. Register for free. Check the link in the show notes. Got to be 21 years or older, of course, to enjoy that delicious Four Peaks beer. Kilt lifter, double pumpkin. You've got everything that you want as far as a beer drinker from Four Peaks and the great food. Got to be 21 years older. And of course, drink responsibly.
We all love drinking responsibly, and we're driven to drink sometimes when we listen to my cohort's comments with Kliff Kingsbury. So Kliff met with the press today. I think there was some, maybe some doubt that press conference would actually happen today, Bill Brack, but you were at the Cardinals facility in Tempe. You got to chat it up, as did the other media members there, with Kliff Kingsbury. And one of the biggest takeaways in what looked like a defeated man, frankly, we've got the clip up on your Twitter basically asking if he was going to relinquish play calling, to which he said, quote, like, no changes with that, something to that effect. Go find the video at Bill Brack if you haven't already. Like, it's sad at this point because he's getting these questions, Bo. There's no denying it. He knows that the offense is grossly underperforming, underachieving, and yet he's got to go up there with his big boy pants on, with his big boy capris, and answer these questions.
Yeah, I mean, he's trying to answer questions that I don't even think he has the answer for. And as far as people kind of calling out his livelihood, I mean, he is a play caller. He's been a play caller ever since he kind of became a coach at any level. And for people to say, well, when are you going to give that up? It doesn't seem to be going well for you. Like, when are you going to give it up? And for him to have to ask, that's pretty much there's a token question each and every week about play calling responsibilities, roles, and duties. And he pretty much, it was as casual as he's done it, in the last couple of weeks. So he's at least entertained the question with some sort of response until today. He's like, there's not going to be any changes. It's going to be me going forward. I'm paraphrasing, but it's pretty much essentially all he gave us. Next question. I mean, that's what we got. And also, that with the issues that we saw on the interior of this offensive line with Aaron Donald, up next, there's no help on the way, guys. Like, there's zero help on the way for this offensive line, and it's getting worse. Rodney Hudson continues to be out. He's not going to be able to get back from the knee injury again this week. And then
why is he not on injured reserve, Bo? Like, did anybody ask that question? Like,
I think that this is because it's just one of those. I don't know if it's like an old war veteran where if the rain or the weather does a certain thing and he feels it in his knee, he can't go. I don't know. I have I have no idea. They're just hopeful he can get back, and it's a week-to-week thing, and he's just not ready, and they didn't want to IR him. And they've already IR'd and returned some guys so far this season. But as far as the interior, that offensive line, like Will Hernandez has a pec injury. He's going to be at least out this week, hopefully not much longer than that. So you're staring down Billy Price, and maybe Max Garcia gets back, but we know what that looks like. And then Cody Ford. And then you've got another option as far as Sean Harlow. It seems like the center position is going to be up for more of a battle this week. I don't think Billy Price is just going to be the guy you're going to move forward with. I asked Kliff about that today. They said, we'll just see how practice progresses. But right now, Billy Price is the guy. But Sean Harlow could be back in the mix come Wednesday when they hit the practice field again.
Scary.
And Bo, what was that quote? I mean, that tweet that you had, you said Harlow and Price out of 6 games. What was it? How many sacks versus Rodney? 9 seasons. He had 2. I mean, go ahead. I'll let you expand on it.
As far as those two guys, Sean Harlow and Billy Price, who have filled in for Rodney Hudson, in the few games that they've played, they'd surrendered 6 sacks plus a couple penalties. I think they had like 5 penalties between the two of them. Rodney Hudson isn't penalized that often, but he's given up the same amount of sacks over 9 seasons that we've seen on display since he's been out the last couple of weeks from the Arizona Cardinals starting center position. Harlow and Price have just not been hanging, even at like a replacement level.
It's frustrating because here's the thing. Kyler Murray does not play well against the Rams historically. And that's with, Justin Pugh, most of the time, Rodney Hudson. I have legitimate concern, guys, for Kyler Murray playing in this game. And it goes way beyond wins and losses and then potentially dropping another game to McVay. Because I think, Vegas, they're an underdog again this week. I think the line's up to 4. I think the line will only get bigger, frankly, as the week goes on. The Rams actually played a competitive game against Tampa and looks like they've got, a little semblance of life offensively now. I am greatly concerned about Kyler Murray and his health and safety against this Rams front. When you trot out practice squad level players, and I know we're thinking ahead, I'm thinking ahead to next year and to this winter when tough decisions are going to be made. I cannot have a selling point of a quarterback that is injured or hurt or missing time. They will never do it, but playing Colt McCoy until everybody's ready to go, that's something that I would at least entertain. Kyler Murray.
They're not doing that. They're not.
I know they wouldn't, but Kyler Murray is going to be
sacrificing poor Colt. You just be
he's sick.
Can you imagine, DA, if they did that at the professional level? God. They're like, we're concerned about the starter, but hey, backup, come on in. No, it's good. It's good for you. You'll be fine. But no, we don't want Kyler to get hurt.
No, but guys, I want to throw this. Jordan P had in the chat, and he talked about, we were talking about the offensive lineman ailments that we have on this team. And he was like, you can't blame Kliff for.
People like the idea in the chat.
Help me understand that, guys. Like, you can't blame Kliff for guys being ineffective or not doing their job.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Everybody's got injuries, and listen, it's not just the sacks for me. Minimize Kyler's ability to get hit and alter your play calling. Be more creative. Let's get more quick. Then. Yeah, boots, quick throws, right? The creative, it's the same offense he's always ran. He's not adjusting at all. You watch some of these teams, they're forced to adjust because, like, San Francisco's O-line hasn't been good this year, and they've maximized what Jimmy Garoppolo is and isn't so they can function. Now, Indianapolis.
And they're very dependent on the run game, too, though.
Right. The Cardinals have, number one, we've been asking this all year, Cardinals have no identity offensively, even with Rodney Hudson and Justin Pugh. They look like shit through Carolina, and those guys were playing, and they kind of figured it out on the fly, and it's all Kyler Murray with his legs kind of playing off-script sandlot football. But this is, I think, magnifies, hey, Kliff, the personnel's not great. What do you got for us? Oh, I have an offense that scores essentially 1 touchdown in 8 quarters against the Seahawks with like 5 rookies on their starting lineup. That's what I've got for you. To me, injuries only expose further with what you are and what you aren't. And I feel like you can pump up all these additions in the offseason. And hell, like, you got D-Hop and Kyler Murray. And to Damien's point, you're giving him 4 targets, 2 in the second half. I'm sorry. That's bigger than we got some guys injured on the offensive line. It's a philosophical issue with Kliff Kingsbury that he can't adjust and lean into what he's good at and what he's not.
I think that's the biggest problem, Johnny, and that needs to be communicated. I think that's what it is, Bo.
It's too late for that, though. I mean, it's like it's November.
No, I mean, but I agree with you. I mean, I think as they do in Judge. The argument.
I mean, the way you can overcome issues like this is just to be more and more prepared. Is the best prepared possible, and we haven't seen that either. Like, it's like the team just like, oh, we're just going to go out there and try to do what we do, and if it doesn't work, well, damn, we're just damned. Like, we can't get it going on. So, and Jalen Ramsey is going to present a challenge as far as DeAndre Hopkins, and he can combat D-Hop. So you're going to have to generate offense elsewhere, and you're going to have to figure out a way to block up enough for Kyler Murray to be able to find, other receivers and go through his progressions. I don't know, DA, we saw more Kyler Murray from under center. Would that help at all as far as what we're seeing in the shot?
Garvey Craig's in the chat. I don't want to interrupt you, Bo, has a super chat, and it's what's a realistic way of upgrading the offensive line? Is that even possible?
Given the current situation, I mean, I think they're always going to look, right, continue to work out players. But given what they have, I think that they have the best available. I think to your point, Johnny, Kliff has to do a better job of maximizing Kyler's, talent, maximizing his players' talent, and getting Kyler outside of the pocket. I mean, there were years that Russell Wilson didn't have the best offensive line, but what did they do? They were amazing at getting him outside the pocket. He would change different throwing lanes and just give him that opportunity to be successful on first and second down by using his legs, right? If it's not there, I'm going to rush and get 3 to 5 yards, right? And that sets you up for 2nd and 5 in a beautiful situation. And the fact that we haven't seen that progression of Kyler Anderson or doing any type of bootlegs and or just remaining, it's going to be what we be. We are going to be who we are. We're going to throw bubble screens and double forward passes. And unfortunately, I mean, it just looks
have
bad.
Penalties, pre-snaps penalties.
Yeah.
Yep.
False starts. Of course. I mean, it's just these self-inflicted wounds that are indicative of a non-disciplined team. And you hate to say that because you know that Kliff, cares about and feels for his players. I genuinely believe he's a player's coach, but I think that may be the downfall. The fact that he can't separate from being a coach and a friend, may be the reason why he can't get on guys and hold them accountable.
I see Chicago and they have so many issues and such a flawed football team, especially how they've been built, the roster and what they've given and haven't given Justin Fields. And one of those things is an offensive line. Like the offensive line is terrible in Chi-Town, and we still see this Bears team compete. And they put up points last week against Miami that has a pretty stout pass rush.
Yeah.
Justin Fields was finding a way. And I think that it was this team was felt some momentum by some moves that they made at the deadline, and they were excited to see it.
But they got rid of guys, Bo. They
did,
and they still went out there in one game.
And maybe that's what the Cardinals need to do. Is it's guys who aren't performing, maybe just send them packing at some point.
Goodbye.
Guys got to start, playing for jobs here, and that's really how you can generate some sort of urgency. Let's take a look at the super chat here. What do we got?
It's
another
one.
Good
question. Yeah, good head coach like Belichick, like Carroll, takes scrubs and wins. A loser head coach like Kliff will take a Brady or a Kyler and make L's out of them. Bo, I mean, the greatest example of that, Bruce Arians used to win like over 50% of his games. He was a 500 coach when like his backup started. Drew Stanton and Blaine Gabbert, just like we know what great coaching looks like. We saw it just a few years ago.
Recession-proof, guys.
Recession-proof coaches. Yeah. How many times Kyler Murray this year in the last 8 losses they've had, when he goes into the second half as a favorite, has lost all 8 games? That tells me, as a favorite, you can't get it done because your head coach can't make adjustments at half. That there is no more demoralizing feeling. And Bo, I'll pose this question to you because I think there is also legitimate concern. And I see this on the Twitter streets with, Big J journalism and people kind of downplaying Sean Payton to Arizona. Like Sean Payton won't come to Arizona. Don't throw that out there. Well, shit, you're paying your quarterback $45 million. Kyler is demanding to be coached better based on the optics that we see. And he's challenging his coach. Are you going to get bumblefuck coach to come here? You're going to repeat all these mistakes? Or let's please open the checkbook and get a real coach in here that's won a Super Bowl that Kyler respects, that can get the most out of him. It makes me sick when I see people say, like, that's not a legitimate option. Why the hell not? Make them feel the pressure that it has to be an option. You're already giving them an out if you say, well, Sean Payton's not an option for Michael Bidwell. Make Michael Bidwell answer the question as to why that's not an option.
He should.
That would infuriate me as a Cardinals fan.
Michael Bidwell should open up his pocketbook because what coaches make compared to what you're paying a franchise quarterback. I mean, you have to kind of put that as part of the investment, right? You're going to have to get this guy as coached up as much as possible. Like Michael Bidwell does not want the Kyler Murray investment to fail because that would possibly sink him as far as what he's trying to do and how quickly he wants to see results on the playing field. if Sean Payton, if he identifies him as the guy for the job, then he should do by any means necessary to get it done. And I don't care what he told The Athletic. I saw the comments about how he doesn't want to deal. He feels like there's some organizations that are just dysfunction just runs rampant through him. It's like this. I mean, first off, sitting in his glass house throwing stones after he got suspended for a full season after he let his defensive coordinator pretty much headhunt out there and go after opposing players and have a reward system for it. Like, give me a break on dysfunction. Like, you were a good coach. You won one Super Bowl with Drew Brees. So let's kind of pump the brakes there. Now, do you want to take on the challenge of taking Kyler Murray's game to the next level and be paid handsomely for it? Here he is. He's ready to go. Do you want to take that on? I think that should be something, if he's a competitor, would want to take on. And if you got a guy like Kyler Murray, you shouldn't be scared off by if he's, John as coach or John at his top wide receiver. Like, you can help Kyler Murray become a better communicator, become a better quarterback. You can be a part of the solution. You're not going to be scared of, if you're looking at any of the opportunities that are going to become available, they're all going to have their red flags. So I don't think that you should take the Cardinals out of it just because what you've heard or what you've seen from Sean Payton recently in the headlines.
And
we're
guys,
getting a report.
Real quick, Johnny, does the price tag go up if they continue to lose?
I mean, I think you're going to have to make him the highest paid head coach in the NFL or near it. And if for Michael Bidwell, it's like, do you want to spend money and win games, or do you want to be a joke? That's what I would be at. You want to have an investment. We talked about it on a different show, Damien. Do you want to have a sports car without the engine, or do you want to have the sports car, that's running on, I don't even know, I'm not a car guy, but it's the equivalent of Kyler Murray without the engine. It's not drivable, right? You got to have the head coach. We just got breaking news via Ian Rappaport, friend of the program, Bo, all-pro safety Budda Baker suffered a high ankle sprain yesterday. A tough blow to the defense. The hope is Baker returns in 2 to 3 weeks. Look at producer Emma Extraordinaire getting that up for us. So,
just crushing it.
Yeah,
just
that's unfortunate. Go ahead.
Let's get into the conversation as far as how they can kind of make up for Budda Baker's potential absence over the next couple days, weeks. And but first, let me tell you how you can spruce up your home by using More Furniture's fall sale. Go to morefurniture.com, morfurniture.com. You'll receive a $100 gift card for every $1,000 you spend. If you see us in studio, the PHNX Sports Studios, you'll see how pimped out that studio is. You can help out your living room, your dining room, your bedrooms at More Furniture. Go get that $100 gift card for every $1,000 you spend. Also, if you see us hanging in studio, you're thinking, man, these guys are boozing a lot. Well, that's not the case. We're actually putting back tall boys of bottled water. We're hanging out drinking mountain spring water from Liquid Death. Yeah, why is it called Liquid Death? It's because it's going to brutally murder your thirst and also brutally murder plastic pollution. Get rid of plastic bottles. They donate 10% of their profits for every can sold to help kill plastic pollution. Be a part of the solution as far as plastic pollution. Go and buy yourself some Liquid Death wherever you can find it at Target, Fry's, Sprouts, or get it liquiddeath.com/PHNX. That's liquiddeath.com/PHNX.
I don't want this to be a scenario, and I'm not downplaying Budda's injury and the fact that Budda is, their best player defensively most Sundays. But I think immediately where my mind goes is if they lose these games without Budda Baker, are we doing the injury excuse like we are with the offensive line, Bo? Because I watched San Francisco miss a bunch of players and put up 30-plus points against the Rams. It doesn't matter. I want Budda to come back healthy and ready for December and to play his best football at the end of the year. He was fantastic yesterday. He got pushed off by Tyler Lockett, but I don't want to hear the noise about, that the Cardinals just suffered too many injuries to compete this year. I don't want to hear that from a Cardinal fan.
I mean, they're 3-6.
Didn't that happen last year, Bo, Johnny? Didn't that happen last year where they suffered too many injuries and as a result, J.J. Watt, D-Hop.
That's why they ran it back this year. That's why they ran it back.
It's 3-6 at the time of the injury. If they do have depth, it is kind of safety. We'll see. Maybe they keep just Isaiah Simmons on the field. Just don't take him off the field at this point. A guy that's worked out with the safeties ever since OTAs. Does he just slide into that role and play more on the back end, and then maybe move up in the box, kind of like AW used to do? in his playing days, but maybe it just gives an opportunity, more snaps to Isaiah Simmons, who's playing about 80% of the snaps. Maybe he gets an uptick over 90. But no, I don't think that this becomes a crutch for this organization. I think at this point, it's out there and they can't hide from it any longer. It's not an injury thing. It's not because Budda Baker was gone. They still should be in better position than the Rams going into that stadium where the home fans aren't usually an issue. You actually have a better offensive line somehow than the Rams, and you're actually playing better offensively, shockingly. Can't let them get right just because Budda Baker's not there. You still have Jalen Thompson, you have Isaiah Simmons, and you have J.J. Watt, Zach Allen, Byron Murphy. You should have enough to get it done against that offense. That can't be a crutch.
Well, and especially it's on the defensive side of the ball too. Like the defense is what it is at this point. I think they're out of gas. They've battled amicably. I think they've overachieved. They have the most defensive touchdowns in the NFL. They've been in a position where if the offense was living up to expectation, guys, this defense would be playing good complementary football. I really do believe that. But because we're sitting in the third quarter or fourth quarter of damn near every game, like, save us, defense. We need a 3-and-out. And you're getting pick sixes, right? You're getting fumble returns for touchdowns, and you're not converting. Think about the 2 games against Seattle. You lost both games. You had a defensive touchdown and a special teams touchdown. And you couldn't win the game. And largely it wasn't competitive in the fourth quarter. So to me, it's just the offense is the problem. Go ahead.
I mean, the offense is worse, but this defense has given up 30 now in 3 straight games.
Not great.
No, it's given up the second most points in the NFL. I mean,
my argument to that would be, Bo, as Johnny said a little bit earlier, it's a war of attrition. After you've continually gone 3-and-out. And don't get me wrong, the back-to-back or whatever it is, 2 and 3 drives that were 13 plays, that was hard to watch. Their ability just to run the ball at will. And I've always talked about this. Tight ends and teams that are able to run the ball is going to give the Arizona Cardinals defense problems, right? Because they're not dependent on being one-dimensional. But you got to be able to – you gave your team back, just like against Minnesota, you gave the team back the ball with opportunities to win, and unfortunately they didn't execute.
The Cardinals, they did not replace Chandler Jones. They get no edge pressure. Go look at Geno Smith's 2 touchdowns yesterday, ample time in the pocket. Super comfortable, right? They get pressure when they send people and when J.J. Watt, Zach Allen get some pressure. But you can't rely on defensive tackles to get pressure time and time again.
10 of 15 on third downs. 10 of 15 on third down.
I mean, Marcus Golden has regressed significantly this year. I know he had a couple quarterback hits. He's got 1 sack this year, I think. They get nothing from Cameron Thomas, Myjai Sanders. They need to play more, frankly, Bo. That's something I would mandate the last 8 weeks of the season. Victor Dumakaji is a special teamer at best. That's on Steve Keim. Steve Keim said, we're just roll with what we have. And it's horrific off the edge. That's not a Vance problem. But what I will say is this. Vance, I think he's done a good job for what he's been given. I think he, has probably been the scapegoat too often. And I would like to see him given an opportunity, the last 8 weeks of the season. I don't think anybody's looking at Vance as like the answer January moving forward. But I think he's deserving of the role he has. And I think he's deserving of an opportunity to be the interim coach. And then we'll kind of go from there. But to me, I thought the defense was going to look like this all year, off and on. It's the offense for me. When you're historically bad offensively in the first half, and they went yesterday, they scored on that first possession, then they didn't score again, a touchdown into their last possession. That's unacceptable. It's just and you hired this guy to be an offensive guru, an offensive genius, and you put all your chips in the offensive basket. You traded for Hollywood Brown. Like, we just keep going down the line of this is Keim's fault, this is Kliff's fault, blah, blah, blah. Okay, then you need to make a change. Like, there isn't one singular factor, whether it's Budda being out or Hollywood being out or D-Hop being suspended. Like, I get it. It's a war of attrition, but it's also this team was not well built. Yes, they have some talent, but it wasn't well built. And your head coach he's getting out-coached almost every Sunday on cue, Bo. You will not be a favorite in the last 8 games of the regular season for a team that was predicted to make the playoffs via Vegas. How do you think that sits with Michael Bidwell? He's got a sports book now across the street from his stadium. They're never going to be favored again.
It's pretty much in this.
How many 3 and outs?
Yeah.
How many 3 and outs? I think Brian Abdullah in the chat just said if the offense would be able to move the ball and allow them to rest, they would have less opportunities on the field. But the fact that they're getting so much turnover and back on the field, it's giving those opposing offensive coordinators a field day to basically do what they want.
I mean, these two teams that are going to match up in Week 10 in Los Angeles or Inglewood between the Rams and the Cardinals are the two worst offensive lines probably going right now as far as what they're dealing with injury-wise and who's available and what level they're playing against. And you just look at how many 3 and outs that they face each and every week. I mean, the Rams are worse. I mean, I think the Rams had like 8 3 and outs against the Bucks on Sunday. Like, they can't stay on.
The Rams have won a game?
The Cardinals, is that right?
Yeah.
Holy shit. Come on, man.
They beat the Cardinals. No, I'm sorry. I think they beat the Panthers. Maybe.
Yeah.
No,
they rolled the Panthers, right?
It was close. But I just remember thinking they looked good offensively against the Cardinals. Moved the ball when they had to.
I mean, they had like 200 yards yesterday, and 69, almost 70 of them came from Cooper Kupp on one play. I mean, they're an offense that's just decimated by injuries and not well built, and they mortgage the future, and they're starting to have to make big time mortgage payments on that. So, but it seemed like anytime Jared Goff and Sean McVay needed to get right game, or now Stafford and McVay, here comes Kliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray. Like, they have to figure out this thing offensively. And if Kliff's going to continue to call the plays like he said he was today in this press conference, the offense has to get better. It has to get better like it did. It's like Zach Ertz said yesterday in the post game. He said, we're taking 1 step forward and 2 steps back. Like, the Arizona Cardinals offense has to show that they can take on a team that's struggling and kind of just figure it out and get it done. And like we talk about this defense, it looks better in comparison to this offense, which has been putrid. So it's like, and the defense hasn't been great. Like we said, it's given up the 2nd most points in the NFL.
Well, Bo, I think at the onset of this season, we knew that the Cardinals hedged their bets offensively, right? Extending
$100 million spent on the offense, $78 million spent on the defense this season alone.
There you go. So the expectations for the defense weren't that high. You just figured as though that, hey, we're going to score 35 to 27 to 35 points a game. The defense just has to stop them a couple times, and we'll win those shootouts. That hasn't been the case. I think on par, I guarantee if somebody broke it down, the defense is right comparatively with the offense in terms of scoring points. So, and given the amount of plays that they have to be on the field, I think that that's problematic. I mean, I don't know if Vance Joseph is an offensive coordinator, but he seems to be doing a decent job with the scoring defense, given what we've seen thus far. Because, Bo, you can't say that you had an expectation for this defense to play solid, given the $100 million investment on this offense at the onset of this season. You can't. No one had that expectation.
For sure. I mean, obviously there was a lot as far as they needed guys to develop, and some of those guys have absolutely taken a step forward as far as Dave and Isaiah. But you're right, a lot had to go right for the defense to compete. Where this offense was like, this offense is going to roll, and it's done the complete polar opposite from that.
No identity, lost. You know who's not lost? Me on the Underdog Fantasy app. I cleaned up yesterday, had a good day. Betting on a little evening football, took most of the unders for Tennessee's offense. Man, Malik Willis, he did not look good. But Tennessee, great coach. They were competitive. You can dabble in the App Store. Click on the links in the show notes. Sign up with promo code PHNX, Underdog Fantasy. Get this, fellas. It's going to double your first deposit up to $100. Already spent mine redepositing because I love Underdog Fantasy. That's promo code PHNX at Underdog Fantasy. Get in on the action today. If you guys haven't checked out the great work of our buddy Howard Balzer at GoPHNX.com, I would highly recommend it. Smash that promo code Howard. Check them out. You can grab a free t-shirt from the PHNX merchandise locker if you sign up with us at GoPHNX.com. Just under $60 for the year. Listen, we got great content from he and Gerald and Craig Morgan, our fantastic beat reporters for the Coyotes, for the Suns, ASU, U of A. So much good stuff that you're only going to find at GoPHNX.com. Well, gentlemen, here we are, end of the day here on a Monday. Kliff Kingsbury remains employed, but that doesn't mean that we can't fire up this nifty little graphic that we had in the works from last week. It is now officially Sean Payton watch here on the PHNX Cardinals podcast, because yes, your fans, our fans, the Cardinal fans, they deserve Sean Payton. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Sean Payton belongs in AZ, and now it feels like not if, but when Kliff Kingsbury will be moved off of, and then it becomes officially Payton watch. So for Damien Anderson, Bo Brack, I'm Johnny Venerable. We're back tomorrow, audio only. Wednesday, doubleheader, Cards Live, plus a Hard Knocks post-game show. Hell yes, we get to watch this team's dysfunction on premium cable television. Be there with us. Like, subscribe, leave us a 5-star. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye, everybody.